Hey, this video is going to be slightly different than some of the other ones. I really like to toy with ideas about, the mythologies that we sort of create about history and pushing a lot of that stuff back with what is the reality of what was going on. And in this video, we're going to address the so-called Dark Ages of Europe. The Dark Ages aren't referred to as the Dark Ages by historians anymore. These are typically accepted, though, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So starting around 476, stretching into the 900s at least. Those are sort of the Dark Ages. And like I said, most historians have dismissed that term. We no longer refer to this as the Dark Ages. Now they're called the Early Middle Ages. And the period used to be called by historians and the general public as the Dark Ages because, for the most part, Europe was ruled by barbarians, by Goths, by other people, that were not Germanic tribes, that were not members of the Roman Empire. And we see the Roman Empire crumble and that decline in government and the emergence of, these so-called barbarians jump into the scene, and they have a large reputation, and some of it's somewhat accurate, but not really. Barbarians, though, have this reputation as, sort of an absence of literacy, absence of culture, and even a rudimentary system of government. The idea that, the barbarians are storming the gates of Rome, and they're just going to pillage and loot everything, and everything is going to devolve into chaos. And that doesn't really work. Didn't really happen that way. I mean, the barbarians do push into Rome, the Goths push into Rome, but they don't really tear it apart. It's not really it. We do have some jumps and some chaos and stuff that does ensue, but that reputation of the Goths sort of being anarchists and cavemen almost does not really fly. So we will, in this little bit, we'll see some decline, but we'll also see quite a bit of continuity. One of the areas of decline, and very much to the disappointment of historians, are literacy rates. But you have to put this into context. Literacy rates were not that high to begin with. Only a very, very tiny percentage of the population of Rome was actually literate. And if you kill a few scribes, then you literally see solid percentage points on your literacy rates declining. So, if it's not that high to begin with, if you have 100 scribes in a region, and you kill 10 or 15, that's a drop in 10, on that, a 10 or 15% drop in literacy. So that's kind of a problematic idea of literacy rates declined. And, well, yeah, but there weren't that many to begin with. Another decline, though, that we do see is that during its height, Rome had a substantial trade network going on with much of the known world. And, during Rome itself, the tail end of Rome itself, we see that decline. We see a lot of those plagues going on that cripple a lot of that trade network. Nobody really wants to go to these new areas because, one, they're kind of scary. You might get some kind of disease. But two, there's not a lot of people that are actually trading and merchants and stuff. That population declined as well. So, with those things said, though, that drop in literacy somewhat and the drop in, expansive trade, there's a lot of continuity. a major organization that continues from the fall of the Roman Empire into the Middle Ages is the Catholic Church. It is the Christian Church. If you are a Christian at this time, you are Catholic. We don't have the Protestant split that comes in 1519. But the barbarians did not. A lot of them converted to Christianity. And so that idea that they're charging into Rome, destroying everything, doesn't really work. A great example is St. Peter's Basilica that was commissioned by Constantine in the year 300. It was still solidly in what is now Vatican City. And during the Dark Ages, early Middle Ages, a sizable palace was constructed next to what is called Old St. Peter's Basilica to house the Pope and his entourage. And so, in the decades following Rome's fall, we have the literal emergence of the Vatican. Don't worry about this for now, but Old St. Peter's Basilica, that was torn down, and a new St. Peter's Basilica was built a couple hundred years later. Something kind of interesting, though, is different groups of people kind of deal with this in different ways. And of particular interest, and this is before the Islamic move into Spain, a group of Visigoths controlled Spain, and they'll control northern Spain even while the Islamic empire of Al-Andalus is in southern Spain. But they worked very, very hard to preserve the Roman Empire, and those Visigoths in Spain did this to such a degree that a visitor that had been in Rome and had gone to Visigothic Spain might not have even known that Rome had fallen. It's that much of a continuity. They kept up Roman life there in Visigothic Spain with a high degree of Roman flavor. Government functions were exactly the same. Taxation functioned basically the same. There was a really high degree of religious tolerance. Their Visigothic Spanish laws were a direct copy of what had been done in Rome. So, there's a lot of continuity in government structure, laws, taxation, religious tolerance. The Visigoths even had similar Roman sporting events. They held circuses, sort of Roman sporting events, not really circuses that we would think of today, but bathhouses. They continued to construct and even maintain the Roman aqueducts that are there. It really looked a tremendously lot like the Roman Empire. So as far as being the Dark Ages, doesn't really quite work. Even in Rome itself, when we had that coup that we talked about a couple of videos ago, where Romulus Augustus was the last Roman emperor, and he was deposed in a coup led by a Germanic barbarian, Odoacer. Odoacer actually contacts the Roman Senate in the eastern part of the empire. He reaches out to the Roman Senate in Constantinople to try to reunite those two empires because they had split. They didn't quite go that far, but Odoacer openly ruled in the name of the Eastern Empire Emperor Leonid. So this is not at all a super hard break. It's really, for the most part, a continuation. I kind of like to look at this as that it's just Europe under new management. Fantastic parallel is when the American colonies broke away from England. There wasn't a dramatic change. You actually have a whole lot of continuity. There's quite a bit of change, and we're going to adapt. But this really isn't, we kind of should view ourselves almost as a continuation of the English Empire, and that's kind of what Europe, for the most part, does. They're a continuation of the Roman Empire, but we are under new management at this point. So, different way to think about this than the sort of the incorrect idea of the Dark Ages and Europe falling into chaos. It's not really that way.